Grammys Backlash canceled SNL bookings, and a brother who made everything worse by calling out the critics. Billie Eilish has built a career on being real and speaking her mind. She became one of the biggest pop stars in the world by doing things her own way. Today, she has millions of fans who love her for it. However, that same honesty just put her in the middle of a full-blown Hollywood cold shoulder, and the fallout is getting worse by the day. Billie Eilish went from Grammys drama to supposedly losing a major Saturday Night Live slot, and now there are reports of serious tension inside NBC. It all started at the 2026 Grammys when Billie made that now viral comment about illegal immigration and stolen land.
No one is illegal on stolen land.
The reaction online was instant. Some people praised her for speaking out. Others felt she crossed a line on a huge national broadcast. Instead of calming things down, the situation grew louder. Her brother Phineas jumped in publicly and blamed much of the backlash on what he described as older white men reacting angrily. That comment did not cool anything off. In fact, many fans pushed back hard, pointing out that some of the criticism came from younger listeners too. Suddenly, this was not just political debate. It was personal. The timing made everything worse. This was not a random podcast interview or a casual Instagram story. This was the Grammys. Millions of people watching live. Award shows already struggle with ratings, and networks are super aware of moments that bring the wrong kind of attention. When an artist drops a charged statement on that stage, it echoes differently than it would on a smaller platform. Bosses notice. Sponsors notice, and in Billie's case, they clearly noticed enough to start making calls behind the scenes. And here is where it gets really interesting. Billie supposedly had an SNL slot lined up for late February. She was expected to perform one of her songs, possibly even a changed version following the Grammys. Drama. Then, according to reports going around online, NBC pulled the plug. Mumford and Sons were brought in instead. That call supposedly sparked internal tension, with some people inside the network disagreeing about whether canceling her was the right move. And if those reports are true, that means this was not just a random swap. It was a planned choice. What makes this even more notable is how quickly it happened. Award show blowups usually play out over weeks, sometimes months, before any real industry results show up. In Billie's case, the SNL cancellation rumors started popping up within days. That speed suggests the network was already watching closely, possibly even tracking social media reaction in real time to gauge how hot this story was burning. When a company moves that fast, it usually means the concern reached higher levels of the group. Now imagine being in Billie's camp watching that unfold. From their side, they may feel like NBC folded under pressure. From NBC's side, they may see it as risk control. Either way, this is not a small snub. SNL is one of the biggest stages in the business. Losing that slot sends a message, and that message is what has everyone talking right now so let's slow this down and walk through how we got here. At the 2026 Grammys, the show already faced heavy heat over ratings and political moments. Viewership for award shows has dropped steadily over the past few years, and networks are under pressure to deliver content that brings crowds together rather than splitting them. Billie's comment became one of the most replayed clips from the night. Social media split almost instantly. Supporters framed it as bold action. Critics said it felt wrong for that platform. Either way, the clip kept going around for days. Then interviews and reactions started rolling out. Phineas addressed the backlash and suggested that a lot of the criticism came from an older conservative group. That comment changed the tone of the talk. Some people who had stayed quiet suddenly spoke up. Fans between 18 and 35 began posting that they felt brushed off by that description. When artists and their teams respond with emotion, it can sometimes stretch a news cycle instead of ending it. That is exactly what seemed to happen here. The framing became part of the story itself. By putting critics in a specific group box, Phineas by accident turned this into a talk about who gets to criticize whom. That kind of shift is dangerous because it pulls more people into the debate. Viewers who had not even cared about the original Grammys moment suddenly had opinions about the response. The drama doubled in size almost overnight, and that made it harder for any network to ignore. Around that same time, insiders began hinting that NBC bosses were rethinking upcoming bookings. Billie had supposedly been scheduled as a musical guest for SNL in late February. The buzz online claimed that higher-ups decided the timing was too heated. The concern, according to reports going around, centered on avoiding further drama that could affect ratings or advertisers. That call supposedly led to internal arguments, with some defending Billie and others saying the network needed distance. And here is something that does not get talked about enough. Networks like NBC run on advertiser ties that are super sensitive to public views. If major sponsors start asking questions about a certain guest, those talks move up the chain quickly. Whether or not advertisers actually threaten to pull out, the mere chance of that happening can drive choices. That math may have played a role in what happened next. What makes this even more layered is the talk that Billie's team thought about pushing back legally. Now, I want to be clear, there is no confirmed lawsuit filed, but rumors suggest talks happened behind closed doors about whether canceling her slot broke any deals. Advisors supposedly warned that taking legal action could backfire and harm long-term industry ties. So instead of filing anything publicly, the plan may have shifted toward damage control. The legal question itself is interesting. SNL bookings usually involve contracts that outline what both sides expect. If NBC backed out without proper reason, Billie's team might have grounds to push back. But the reality of entertainment law is tricky. These ties depend on goodwill, and suing a network that you want to work with in the future is rarely a winning move. Even if you win in court, you lose in the long run. Meanwhile, the internet did not quiet down. Paparazzi questioned her about the drama. Clips of her walking past cameras without responding fueled more debate. That silence became its own storyline. Some saw it as class. Others saw it as dodging. And the more that story built, the more the industry seemed to watch carefully. Now let's talk about the internet because the reactions were intense. Supporters argued that artists should not be punished for sharing political views. They pointed out that musicians have spoken out for decades. Critics pushed back and said timing and tone matter, especially on a televised awards show watched by millions. The comment sections turned into debates about free speech, cancel culture, and whether networks should step in. What made this certain situation interesting was the age divide within her own fan base. Billie built her career on linking with younger crowds who liked her realness and drive to speak her mind. But when Phineas framed the backlash as mainly coming from older conservatives, some of those same young fans felt wrongly labeled. They pushed back, saying they loved the music but disagreed with the platform choice. That internal split was something her team clearly did not expect. On X and TikTok, some longtime fans posted that they felt pushed away by the framing of the backlash. A few viral threads claimed they loved her music but did not like being labeled part of. A group problem. That feeling gained traction fast. At the same time, other fans defended both Billie and Finneas, saying they were clearly reacting with emotion and should not be torn apart for it. So the fan base itself looked divided. The talk also spilled into broader chats about celebrity activism and its limits. Some commenters pointed out that artists have a right to speak, but crowds also have a right to respond. That back and forth is nothing new. What felt different this time was the speed and heat of the exchange. Social media pushed the most heated takes to the top, which shoved moderate voices to the edges. The result was a talk that felt more split than it probably needed to be. Industry watchers chimed in too. Media experts noted that networks work differently than social media platforms. A company like NBC weighs advertiser comfort, crowd reaction, and brand image all at once. If bosses felt the drama could overshadow the show, swapping musical guests might have felt safer. Whether that was fair or not depends on who you ask. One media expert put it bluntly in a podcast appearance. They said that networks are not in the business of making political statements, they are in the business of selling ad time. When a guest becomes a lightning rod, the math changes. That view might sound cold, but it reflects how these choices actually get made in boardrooms. Art and money do not always line up. What added fuel to the fire were comparisons to other celebrities who faced backlash after political remarks. People brought up past examples where comments affected casting or promotional chances. The story quickly shifted from one Grammys clip to a broader talk about how Hollywood responds to drama. And when that kind of comparison starts trending, it rarely stays small. Because at that point, the story is no longer just about one comment. It becomes about power, influence, and who controls the stage. And that is where this starts to feel bigger than a single SNL booking. This situation hits harder because Billie built her image around being real. She has always spoken openly about her views and pushed young fans to think for themselves. That honesty is part of why people linked with her in the first place. So when drama strikes, it feels bigger. Supporters expect her to stand firm. Critics expect her to rethink. Her rise was built on the idea that she was different from factory-made pop stars. She wore baggy clothes to avoid being judged for her body. She talked openly about mental health. She made music that felt personal rather than focus grouped. All of that created a bond with fans who saw her as genuine, but that same realness now works against her in a way. When she speaks out politically, fans expect her to mean it fully. And when the response is messy, it becomes harder to brush off as just show business. There is also a pattern in Hollywood where public political comments sometimes ripple into business choices. Studios rarely admit that directly. They frame changes as scheduling issues or creative shifts, but fans notice timing. If a booking goes away right after a viral moment, people connect the dots. Fair or not, how people see it drives the story. This is not unique to Billie. Other artists have faced similar spots over the years. Some bounced back quickly, others found certain doors quietly closed for months or even years. The difference often comes down to how the drama is handled in the days right after. Making things worse tends to backfire. Quiet patience tends to work better. Whether Billie's team is picking the right path remains to be seen. Then there is the business reality. Networks aim to protect ratings. Advertisers prefer calm. When a star becomes the center of heated debate, bosses weigh risk. That does not always mean they disagree with the artist. It often means they want peace. If NBC believed swapping musical guests would reduce tension, that call may have felt useful, rather than personal. The challenge is that useful choices still carry weight as symbols. When a network pulls back from an artist during drama, it reads as a statement whether it was meant that way or not. Billie's supporters see betrayal. Her critics see her being held to account. Both readings exist at the same time, and neither is fully wrong. Still, from an artist's view, losing a major platform stings. Especially when you believe you are standing up for something that matters, that feeling layer makes everything harder. It is not just a business shift, it becomes a statement. And when both sides dig in, even quietly, the tension does not go away overnight. It lingers. And when tension lingers in Hollywood, other studios watch closely before deciding what they will do next. So here we are. A Grammys comment spirals into online backlash. Backlash spills into SNL rumors. NBC supposedly pulls back, and suddenly the talk shifts from one speech to an artist's industry standing. That blow-up happened fast. Now I want to be clear. None of this means Billie's career is over. She has a massive fan base and clear talent. Drama flares up and fades all the time. But the way this played out shows how quickly things move in modern media. One viral moment can lead to weeks of headlines. One defensive comment can stretch the cycle even longer. The speed is what strikes me most. Past generations of artists had time to craft responses, talk with publicists, and let things cool down before making their next move. That luxury barely exists anymore. Social media demands instant reactions, and those reactions create their own news cycles. By the time a polished statement arrives, the story has already been written 10 times over by strangers on the internet. If NBC truly pushed back or canceled her slot to avoid risk, that speaks to how careful networks are right now. The streaming era has made regular television more fragile than ever. Live broadcasts like SNL rely on steady viewership and advertiser trust. Any bump to that formula gets looked at heavily. In that context, the choice to swap guests makes cold business sense, even if it feels unfair from an artistic view. If her team really debated legal action but chose not to move forward, that suggests they get the long game. Ties matter in this industry. Burning bridges rarely helps. The entertainment world is smaller than it looks. Bosses move between networks. Producers work across platforms. Today's enemy might be tomorrow's partner. Keeping doors open, even when you feel wronged, is often the smarter play. What grabs me most is how divided the reaction remains. Some viewers see her as brave. Others think she misjudged the platform. Both feelings exist at the same time, and that tension keeps the story alive. The next few weeks will be telling. Watch for other scheduled bookings. See if talk show spots hold or quietly go away. Pay attention to which industry figures publicly support her, versus who stays silent. Those signals will reveal whether this is a passing storm or something that reshapes how she is seen as a professional. Personally, I think the next few months will tell us everything. If she returns to major stages without issue, this becomes a brief chapter. If more networks create distance, then it signals something deeper. Either way, this moment reminds every artist that fame and free expression come with tricky trade-offs. I want to know what you think. Was NBC right to swap the guest, or did they overreact? And do you think this will blow over, or is this a turning point? Let's talk in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.